Black Friday has started on Boosty. Up to 60% discount on subscription levels. Hurry up to buy at such a great price. Link in the description. Enjoy watching, everyone. Description: Naruto dies in battle with Kaguya and Rikudo sends him to another world. Chapter 9. Today is the distribution. This was the first thought that came to my mind when I woke up. Today I will finally graduate from this academy and become a genin. Not much has changed in the 3 years since the Uchiha massacre. The 4 of us still train, although Seiji doesn't show up as often anymore. He did become a chunin after all and now often goes on missions outside the village. Our relationship has improved and become friendly. I haven't forgotten how he treated Naruto here, but I still forgave him, and we have become real brothers. As I thought, I couldn't forgive Kushina, but I still feel neutral towards her. She is happy about this, although she is sad that I haven't forgiven her, but she still understands that she doesn't deserve forgiveness. My relationship with Minato has remained unchanged. We still ignore each other. The only time I started a dialogue with him was 6 months ago, when I demanded that Kiyomi, Satsuki, and I be assigned to the same team. He agreed almost without argument. I put aside the memories of the past years, stood up and did my usual exercises. After a quick shower, I got dressed and went downstairs. Kushina was already in charge there. "Good morning, Naruto." "Good," I answered and waited for breakfast to be prepared. "Who do you think will be your sensei?" She decided to support the dialogue. "Itachi would be good, he knows our strengths better than we do. Kakashi-san is also a good option, I train with him quite often. I don't know the others, so I'm counting on these 2, although Itachi is very unlikely, he is the head of the clan after all, he doesn't have time for mentoring." I answered in detail. At that moment, a yawning Kiyomi entered the kitchen. She greeted everyone and sat down at the table, pulling her portion towards herself. After breakfasting in silence, we left the house, hearing Kushina's good luck wishes for us. On the way, we met Satsuki and the 3 of us headed to the academy. After Itachi recovered, he and Satsuki returned to the Uchiha quarter, but they live in a different house. They both can't stand being in the clan head's house, so they took a smaller house, closer to the exit from the quarter. All the surviving Uchiha recovered from the massacre and returned to serve the village. The 3 of us, along with Itachi, managed to prevent Satsuki from falling into darkness. She was not fixated on revenge, like Sasuke, but she still wanted revenge. I didn't even try to dissuade her from this, realizing that nothing would work, and simply told her that she could count on my help. She then burst into tears and hugged Kiyomi and me, thanking us warmly. After this incident, our 3 became even closer, although, it would seem, where else? Having reached the academy, we walked to the right classroom, sat down at the last desk and began to wait for Irika. He did not keep us waiting long, and appeared 10 minutes later. He immediately began to congratulate us all on becoming shinobi, and wished everyone good luck. Probably. I don't know, I missed his entire speech, lost in my own thoughts. I woke up from a jab from Satsuki. I looked at her questioningly, she shook her head in Irika's direction. I nodded understandingly and began to listen to him. Team 7, Uchiha Satsuki, Namikaze Kiyomi, Uzumaki Naruto. Mentor Kakashi Hatake. Well, I expected that. When the distribution was over, and we were left alone in the audience, I said, "Knowing Kakashi, he will come here in 3 hours at best, so I suggest we go have a bite to eat at Ichiraku for now." They nodded in agreement, and the 3 of us headed to the ramen shop. Imagine our surprise when we met our sensei there. "So this is where the roads of life lead you, Kakashi-sensei," I grinned. He was surprised by our appearance, but chuckled at my phrase. "I'm also glad to see you, Naruto. Okay, since you are all here, let's have our acquaintance here. Of course, I already know you, but this is a tradition and it must be observed." "Then you start, Kakashi-sensei," said Kiyomi, eating ramen. "Good. My name is Hatake Kakashi. I am an elite Jonin Konoha. I love to read and I can't stand betrayal. My goal is to make good shinobi out of you. Now you," he pointed at Kiyomi. My name is Namikaze Kiyomi. I love my family and training with my brother and Satsuki. I don't like unreasonable cruelty and arrogance. The goal is to make my loved ones happy. Okay, now you are. He poked at Satsuki. My name is Uchiha. Satsuki, I love tomatoes, my brother, and my friends. There are too many things I don't like, so I won't list them. The goal is to avenge the clan and make it great again. I am Uzumaki Naruto, I said without waiting for Kakashi. I love my sister and training with her and Satsuki and of course ramen. I hate hypocrisy. I have a goal and a dream. The goal is to just live peacefully, the dream is peace in the world. Kakashi looked at me in surprise, but said nothing. Okay, now that we've met, we can start carrying out missions and training. But before that, you will need to pass a test. Come tomorrow at 5 a.m. to the 7th training ground fully armed. No lateness. And yes, I don't advise you to eat before the test, otherwise you might throw up. That's all. Until tomorrow. He gave us instructions and left the ramen shop. I suggest we gather there at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and now we'll figure out a strategy. I started right after he left. Are you sure we should come so late? He specifically told us to come on time. Satsuki doubted. This is Kakashi, so I'm sure he won't come before 10. But we'll still play it safe and come at 8. And also, I advise you to eat more, you'll throw up, oh well, but we'll be full of strength, and I think we'll need it as much as possible. Good, answered Kiyomi. Somehow it turned out that I became the unofficial leader of our team. Even Satsuki accepted it. It's probably better this way, considering my experience of being a shinobi in the past world. We'll most likely have a test with the bells. We'll need to take them from him. But that's not the main thing in this test. He'll test our teamwork, so it's good that we've trained it often, so there won't be any problems with that, and we'll definitely pass the test. But it will be better if we can still get the bells. How do you know all this? Satsuki was surprised. Seiji told me how his test went. I don't think he'll change it. I see. Let's go to the training ground, we'll train a little, Kiyomi suggested. We all agreed and, having paid the bill, went to the training ground. We trained there for a few hours, but didn't risk more, since we needed to be fresh and rested tomorrow. Having parted with Satsuki at the turn to the Uchiha quarter, we went home. I didn't want to contact Kushina now, so I immediately went to the shower and went to bed. Chapter 10. Today I woke up a little later than usual. After a quick shower, I went down to the kitchen and met my brother there. Good morning, Seiji, how was the mission? I greeted him and started making breakfast. Good, the mission went as usual, nothing interesting, just the usual escort. How are you? Who became the team's mentor? He asked. Kakashi. Yesterday we decided not to wait for him in the classroom and went to Ichiraku, and met him there. We met at the ramen shop. Seriously? He laughed. Well, that's like him. When did he assign you the test? At 5 in the morning. He looked at his watch. 6:30. You still have time, he said. I laughed and put the plates with breakfast on the table. Seiji thanked him with a nod of his head and started eating. I went to wake up Kiyomi. Having knocked beforehand and received no answer, I entered the room and began to shake her. A minute later she finally deigned to wake up and demanded to leave the room. I grinned and went down to the kitchen. Seiji was already finishing his portion by this time. Thank you, Naruto. As always, it was delicious. Good luck to you today. And I'm going to bed, I'm tired after the mission. With these words, he left the kitchen. A couple of minutes later, Kiyomi came in and started having breakfast. After eating, we left the house and headed to the training ground. We arrived there closer to 8. Satsuki was not there yet, Kakashi, by the way, either. We sat under a tree and began to quietly talk. After 15 minutes, Uchiha came and joined us. I decided to take a little more nap and lay down on the grass. I fell asleep to the quiet voices of the girls. Judging by the position of the sun, I woke up a couple of hours later. I felt some kind of weight on my shoulders. Looking down, I realized that Kiyomi had apparently decided not to get her head dirty on the ground and had laid it on my shoulder. Satsuki followed her example and laid her head on my other shoulder. Sighing quietly, I didn't wake them up and just continued to lie there. Half an hour later, Kakashi came. Seeing this picture, he smiled and was about to comment on it, but I beat him to it. Not a word. Otherwise, I'll tell the girls what kind of literature you're reading, I said threateningly. I just wanted to wake you up. Kakashi immediately began to make excuses. Of course. Okay, forget it. Girls, wake up, sensei's here. I began to wake them up. They immediately jumped up. Kakashi and I chuckled, and I got up too. Okay, if everyone's awake, then we can begin. I have 2 bells, your task is to take them. The one who fails will be sent back to the academy. That is, one of you will definitely go there, but you can fail the test together. You have until 12. You can use whatever you want, attack as if you want to kill me. Start. He commanded, and we immediately disappeared from the clearing, hiding in the trees. We act according to yesterday's plan, I said quietly. They nodded and dispersed. Okay, I should start acting. After waiting a minute, I created several shadow clones. 2 of them I gave the appearance of my teammates, sent them to the sides, and I rushed head on. The clones depicting Kiyomi and Satsuki blew out a fireball, enhanced by the wind, while I ran to Kakashi, taking out a katana on the go. Sensei dodged the ball and took my blow with a sword on a kunai. I soaked the katana with wind, he ran lightning through the kunai. We began the fight at close range, while the clones under the henge covered me, throwing iron. At this time, the real Kiyomi walked around the entire clearing, placing paralysis seals to immobilize Sensei. When the right time came, I jumped high into the air, and circles of fuin spread across the entire clearing, preventing Kakashi from moving. Satsuki appeared from the bushes and rushed to the ash-haired man to take the bells, but he left as a substitute. Okay, but this is not enough to win, he said. Kiyomi removed the seal and went out into the clearing. Our maneuver failed, which means that only direct combat remains. The main thing is not to forget that our goal is not to win, but to take the bells. I landed on the ground and Satsuki stood next to me. We looked at each other, exchanged nods, and rushed towards Sensei. She activated her 2-volume Sharingan, and we tied up Kakashi in combat. It was incredibly difficult to fight him, which is not surprising. After all, they don't give elite jonin for pretty eyes. Kiyomi was covering us with iron at this time. Realizing that we couldn't take the bells away like that, we jumped away from Kakashi and ran up to Kiyomi. After exchanging glances again, we simultaneously began to fold seals. Katon, Fire Dragon. Suiton, Water Coating. Raiton, Electrification. 3 voices merged into one. The entire ground under Kakashi was covered with water, through which a powerful electric discharge launched by Kiyomi immediately passed. The ash-haired man got it badly from it, but he was still able to jump away from Satsuki's fire dragon, having previously formed a dry patch of land with the Doton technique. But the dragon was not needed to harm Kakashi. He, flying over the water, evaporated it, and now there was a large cloud of steam on the training ground. Raiton, Thundercloud. Futon, Great Gust. The electrified cloud flew towards Kakashi. He had to leave again as a substitute, so as not to fall under this technique. Satsuki quickly realized where he was and threw a kunai with an explosive tag there, indicating his location. My sister and I immediately rushed there, creating a clone each. Kakashi expected that we would go into close combat again, but we ran around him and put a seal again, this time to suppress chakra. It did not block the ability to use it, we can't put such yet, but ours noticeably complicated its use. Satsuki created a ring of fire around us, so that it would be harder for Kakashi to get out. This time Kiyomi went into close combat while I was preparing the technique. Kakashi noticed my preparations and was already noticeably nervous, realizing what was about to happen. Having formed a blue ball of chakra in my hand, I replaced Kiyomi. Because we are twins, we can do such a trick, and I hit Kakashi, who did not expect such a turn of events, with this sphere, shouting, Rasengan! Sensei flew towards Satsuki, who had previously removed the ring of fire so as not to harm him. He crashed into a tree, and while he had not come to his senses, Uchiha ran up and cut off the bells. She immediately ran up to us. Kakashi with difficulty got to his feet. Approaching us, he said, "Well done, you defeated me." "No, Kakashi-sensei, we defeated a weak jonin at most, and not you," I objected. "As you say, but even this is a very good result," Kakashi agreed. "I did not expect such a level from you. Now there is one last question. Satsuki, who are you giving the second bell to?" She placed the bells in Kiyomi's and my hands and squeezed them, showing that she had divided the 2 bells between the 3 of us. Interesting decision. Okay, congratulations, you've passed the test and now we are officially the 7th team. You understood that this test is about teamwork, and you've shown a very high level of both coherence and just shinobi skills. Come to the Hokage's residence at 9 tomorrow to receive your first mission. Hooray! Kiyomi cried out joyfully, and she grabbed us into Satsuki's arms. We laughed and responded in kind. Unhooking ourselves, our sister immediately dragged us to Ichiraku to celebrate the formation of the team. There, old man Tucci, who knew us well, congratulated us and gave us coupons for free ramen. We walked around Konoha until the evening, and only parted ways when it got dark. After saying goodbye to Satsuki, we went home. Kushina and Seiji were waiting for us there, and they immediately started asking us about the test. After the retelling, Seiji started to feign indignation. How come we couldn't even touch him? He was just reading his book and lazily fighting back with one hand. It's not nice to envy, brother, I scolded him. He laughed in response. In general, the evening passed in a fairly relaxed and cheerful atmosphere. But I felt that I would again be attacked by a melancholic mood. Therefore, in order not to spoil the evening for my sister, I apologized, said that I was tired, and after a quick shower, went to my room and went to bed. But after tossing and turning for about an hour and a half, I realized that I would not fall asleep now and got out of bed. I quickly got dressed and jumped out the window so as not to wake the others. I headed to the Hokage monument. Having reached there, I sat on my father's head and, looking at the night Konoha, immersed myself in my thoughts. I don't know how much time passed, but I woke up because of someone's presence next to me. I looked around and was surprised to find Satsuki. I nodded hello and offered to sit next to her. She sat down and also began to look at the village. Can't sleep either? I asked. She nodded. We sat like that for a few minutes until she asked, "What's bothering you?" I thought. Should I tell her? How would she react to this? Having made up my mind, I answered. Do you remember when we first visited Itachi after the massacre, you asked why I started crying? Yes, I remember. You said then that you weren't ready to tell me. Do you mean that you're ready now? She asked. No, I'm still not ready, but I'll tell you anyway. Just warn you, the story will be long, and you most likely won't believe me at first. I warned. You tell me, and then I'll decide whether to believe me or not. I grinned. Then let's start with the funniest news. The thing is, I'm from another world. What? She exclaimed. You're right, I really don't believe it. Explain. As I said, I'm from another world, which was similar to this one, but different in some ways. There, I died in battle, and old man Rikudo offered me to be reborn in another world. Are you familiar with Rikudo? Sennin? She exclaimed. I'll tell you more, I'm the reincarnation of his youngest son, Ashura. What news you have here, she said. Imagine how shocked I was when I found out. I chuckled. I can't even imagine. How did you live there? How did Kiyomi and I live there? It's complicated. The thing is, Kiyomi wasn't there at all, just like Seiji. I was the only son of dead parents. I said quietly. Dead? She whispered soundlessly. Yes, they died during the Kyuubi attack on Konoha. They sacrificed their lives so that I could survive. The third returned to the post of Hokage then. I continued sadly. She sat closer and hugged me with one arm, as a sign of support. I nodded gratefully and hugged her too. I grew up in an orphanage where everyone hated me. I wasn't told who my parents were, but somehow everyone knew that I was the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. 6 years later, I entered the academy, where I was the worst student. I was constantly doing all sorts of nasty things, just to be noticed. But this only earned me even more hatred from the locals. I failed the genin exam, and then a traitorous teacher found me and asked me to steal a secret scroll with the Hokage's techniques. From it, I learned shadow clones, which became my signature technique. After that, I was finally allowed to become a genin. It's terrible, she said. People shouldn't live like that, especially children. Yeah. However, after graduating from the academy, the happiest time of my life began. That's when I found my first friend. It was you, or rather, not exactly you, but your version from my world, Uchiha Sasuke. What? She was surprised for the umpteenth time that evening. In my world, you were a boy named Sasuke. I grinned. She groaned dully. What was Itachi like? She asked. Everything is very bad here. The thing is, Itachi was the one who wiped out the Uchiha clan, leaving only Sasuke alive. What? She said in shock. But how? Itachi would never. Sasuke hated his brother and swore revenge, which he succeeded in, but he himself became a missing since he became Orochimaru's student. As it turned out later, the Uchiha clan was planning a coup, and the elders gave Itachi a choice: either he wipes out his clan but leaves Sasuke alive, or they themselves kill everyone. Itachi loved his brother too much, and he could not allow him to be killed. I can't believe it. How did this happen? Why did the Uchiha want to start a coup? She still didn't believe it. During Kurama's attack, many saw the Sharingan burning in his eyes. It was controlled by one of the Uchiha, so they began to distrust them and deprived them of their rights in every possible way. They couldn't stand it. We sat on the Hokage monument for a long time. I told her the story of my life. She was surprised, empathized, and tried to provide all kinds of support, seeing how hard it was for me to tell it. I told her everything, about the Chunin exam, about Tsunade, about Akatsuki, about Sasuke's departure, about how I found out who my parents were, about Pain, Obito, Madara, and Kaguya. It took me half the night to tell the whole story. By the end of the retelling of my life, Satsuki was sitting with a tear-stained face, clinging to me. I tried to comfort her, but it was very difficult for me to relive all those moments again. And so, having died in the battle with Kaguya, I ended up here. I finished. It's terrible, she said. You had a terrible life. But now I have a wonderful one, I said. I'm not alone, I have you, and Muto and Seiji. We will try to prevent all this from happening, she said firmly. This cannot be allowed. We will become stronger and defeat everyone. Of course we will win, there is no doubt about it. I smiled slightly. I hope, she said quietly. Thank you? For what? I was surprised. For opening up. For trusting. For not letting me fall into darkness. For being there, she answered. I smiled and hugged her tighter. After sitting like that for a minute, I realized that Satsuki had fallen asleep. I continued to look at Konoha, thinking about whether I did the right thing by telling you everything. I think so, Kurama suddenly answered. You needed to talk, you kept everything inside for too long. Of course, I don't trust the Uchihas, and in your place I would tell your sister everything, but it's your choice, and I respect it. Thank you, friend, I said mentally, for everything. Just let's not use any tenderness, okay? Please! Kurama groaned. Now I know what to scare you with, I chuckled. Just try. Kuramachka, darling, thank you for everything, you are the most precious thing for, and oh. The fox screamed in his subconscious and closed the communication channel. I laughed quietly. Without him, my life would be too boring. It was time to go home, but I didn't want to go there at all. It was so comfortable to sit here. And I shouldn't forget about Satsuki in my arms. Why not? I created a clone who quickly ran home and brought a blanket. He covered Satsuki and me and dispersed with the words, "Have a good rest, boss." I chuckled and fell asleep a few minutes later with a smile on my face. Chapter 11. I woke up to Satsuki tossing and turning. Looking down, I realized she was still asleep, her arms wrapped around me. It looked really cute, and I chuckled, hugging her close. The sun was just rising, so I hadn't slept much, but I felt rested. I thought about my powers once again, this time about my level of strength. I was definitely much stronger than I was at this age in my world, but it was definitely not enough to stand up to Akatsuki. Kurama, what's the chakra like? Bijou? I asked mentally, re-establishing the communication channel. As I told you, your maximum now is 5 tails, but I don't recommend going that far. The best option for you now is 4 tails, they will do almost no harm to your body. The fox answered me. I understand, according to your forecasts. When will I be able to activate the cloak? 2 years. There's not that long left to wait. I hope that I'll have time to restore my strength before Akatsuki gets seriously interested in me. Kurama snorted in agreement and fell asleep again. Just at that moment, Satsuki began to wake up. Good morning, I chuckled. Naruto? What are you doing here? She didn't fully wake up. However, opening her eyes, she stared at my grin and looked around the area. Yesterday, you finally decided to take advantage of my offer from 3 years ago and fell asleep in my arms. I continued to smile. She immediately jumped up with a blush on her cheeks. Couldn't you carry me home? She was indignant. Nope, I was too lazy. I continued to tease her. And when else will I have a chance to fall asleep hugging a beautiful girl in nature? Idiot, she said quietly, blushing even more. That's the whole point of girls. I pretended to be offended. You compliment them, and they call you names in response. She smirked. Actually, I complimented you back. Your problem is that you didn't understand. If I stop talking to you after this, and who will carry you in their arms? I asked threateningly. I'll somehow survive. That's it, this is war. I flew up to her at maximum speed and started tickling her. She didn't have time to react and fell to the ground, laughing loudly. Stop, wahaha at it, she begged. I only laughed in response. After a minute, I finally took pity, finished the execution and offered my hand, helping her up. She stood up and, having caught her breath and become serious, asked, Does Kiyomi know about your past? No, you are the first person I told. I answered. Why me? Why not her? She was surprised. Kurama is wondering the same thing. I chuckled. If Amato had found me yesterday, I would have told her. I trust you equally. I see. When are you planning to tell her? I don't even know. I definitely can't stand another evening of memories in the near future. It's too painful to relive it. But I have to tell her. And Seiji? And Seiji isn't. I wasn't planning on telling him. I see, she said, came up and hugged me. Thank you again for your trust. I really appreciate it. After standing like that for a minute, we pulled away from each other. Do you want to go home now? Not really. Then I suggest we get something to eat and go to the training ground, wait for the time Kakashi appointed. I don't mind, she said and suddenly shuddered. What's wrong with you? I was surprised. I imagined what would have happened if your sister had seen us. Indeed, it's a terrible picture. She would definitely not have left us alone. She reminded me of that incident with you in the hospital for more than 6 months. I shuddered. Talking, we reached Ichiraku, which had just opened, quickly ate there and went to the training ground. I didn't feel like training, so we sat under a tree on the shore of a small lake and continued discussing my past life. Listen, you said that you evicted the soul of the local Naruto. What happened to it? She asked. This is the reason why I will never forgive the local Minato and Kushina. I frowned. The local Naruto could not stand everyone's hatred. He was going to commit suicide. Satsuki opened her eyes in shock. Old man Rikudo made him an offer similar to mine, and now he is also traveling through the worlds. I sincerely hope that everything turned out well for him. So if it weren't for you, Naruto would be dead? She still couldn't believe it. That's right. Satsuki wanted to say something else, but she was interrupted by the appearance of Kiyomi, who landed not far from us. She looked very angry. Good morning, Naruto. What happened? I asked with interest. What happened? She asked quietly. Goosebumps ran down my body. And judging by the look of Satsuki, I was not the only one. What happened? She repeated much louder. Uzumaki. Naruto. Where have you? I tried to justify myself. Why didn't you warn me that you were going somewhere? Kiyomi interrupted me. Do you even know how worried I was when I saw an empty room and an open window? What did I imagine while I was looking for you? Kiyomi, and it turns out that while I, like a fool, ran around the entire village looking for my missing brother, he just sat and chatted the whole time. Emuro, listen. I couldn't sleep, so I went out to get some air. And I accidentally fell asleep on the Hokage monument. Satsuki found me there in the morning. I don't know what she was doing there, but she woke me up and we came here and now we're chatting. It's my fault that I didn't think that you would be worried, and for that I apologize. Kiyomi calmed down a bit and sat down next to us. Okay, I'll forgive you this time, but just try to pull that off again without warning. The fox's second coming will seem like heaven to you. Sometimes Kiyomi really scares me, Satsuki quietly whispered in my ear. I nodded in agreement. I hear everything, my sister said, and we shuddered. Okay, we're already late for the residence, so I suggest we go. We really were late, so we quickly got up and hurried to the residence. We arrived an hour after the appointed time, at the same time as Kakashi, by the way. Satsuki and Kiyomi definitely caught this habit from me and Sensei. Having entered the residence, we went into the Hokage's office. Team number 7 has arrived to receive the mission, Kakashi reported. It turns out that now we will get her. Okay, your first E-rank mission is helping to weed the garden, said Minato. Oh yeah, that's it. Weeding the garden, it's hard to imagine how much I missed you during the war. Just monotonous work in which you can calm your nerves and think about your own. Beautiful. Hi. So 2 months passed. We carried out D-rank missions, almost always sending clones on them. During this time, we were intensively training with Kakashi. I, in secret from everyone, trained a new technique. I always envied Sasuke with his Chidori. Now I have an analog that suits me better. Why in secret? Because I wanted to. Well, and also because it is always worth having an ace up your sleeve. Considering that now we have a mission to capture Tora, the devil cat of the daimyo's wife, I will soon meet Zabuza, and I feel there will be a need for a new technique there. D-rank mission completed, ready for the next one. Please issue a C-rank mission, my students are ready. Kakashi asked. Are you sure? The Hokage clarified. Absolutely. Our sensei said firmly. Okay, then bring Tazuna here. You will have a C-rank mission to escort and protect him. Satsuki and I exchanged glances. A drunk old man entered the office. He looked at us and became indignant. And they are going to protect me? They are children. He was about to say something else, but a kunai near his throat prevented him. I got tired of listening to him, and quickly moved behind him, putting the aforementioned kunai there. We may look like children, but age is not an indicator in our world. Our sensei was already a jonin at our age. So I suggest we stop being indignant and start the mission, I said in a quiet, calm voice, and put away the kunai. Tazuna swallowed and looked at me nervously. He could not notice how I returned to my place. Naruto, it is forbidden to treat customers like that. Minato was indignant. I apologized to Hokage-sama, but this was the fastest way to prove our competence. I answered in the same calm voice. I also apologize to you, Tazuna-san. I hope you are not offended by me. Well, if you are finished, then you have an hour to get ready. We will meet at the main gate. Disperse, Kakashi commanded. My sister and I quickly ran home, told Kushina that we had a mission outside the village, and ran to get ready. I had long ago prepared scrolls with everything necessary for such an event, so the preparations did not take much time. Half an hour later we were already standing at the gate and waiting for the others. Another half-hour later the others arrived and we left the village. Thus began our mission in the land of waves. We had been walking for several days. I am glad that after my speech Tazuna stopped drinking. Apparently I impressed him. We mostly just talked, not forgetting to look around. And finally a puddle with demon brothers appeared. I decided not to wait for them to get out, quickly folded the seals and said, "Raiton, Thunder Spear!" A powerful bolt of lightning flew out of my hand and hit the puddle. Two new Knin immediately appeared from it, who still managed to jump back, but Satsuki immediately met them, sending them into genjutsu with her gaze. "Well done, you noticed the ambush," Kakashi praised, surprised. "And now it seems to me that you, Tazuna-san, should answer us a couple of questions." He began to tell about Gato and how little money they had. I had already heard all this, so I did not really listen. He started playing on his pity, and Kiyomi wanted to help him. I didn't mind because I wanted to fight Haku. Satsuki also agreed, and we continued on with the mission. A day later, we reached a river, and a very nervous boatman agreed to take us across. We crossed the river and I became even more attentive. Zabuza didn't keep me waiting long. "Get down!" Kakashi shouted and we all fell to the ground. I had to knock down the bridge builder as well. A huge sword flew over us and stuck into a tree. A tall man, dressed only in pants, landed on the long handle. The lower half of his face was bandaged. "Well, Zabuza himself, Momochi, the famous demon of the Bloody Mist," said Kakashi. "Does Hitaki Kakashi, known as the Copy Ninja, really know my name?" "I'm flattered. Hand over the old man and I won't hurt your children." "Forgive me, but I have to refuse you," the sensei said politely, raising his hitai. We weren't surprised to see the Sharingan there. He had already shown it to us. "Well, if not, then no, it's my job to offer," Zabuza grinned. "Then I think we can get down to business." Suetun, concealment in the mist. A thick fog covered the entire clearing. "Do not engage in combat," Kakashi commanded. "This is not your level. Protect Tazuna-san." We surrounded the trembling old man. A heavy yaki fell on us. I didn't care about it. After Kurama's yaki it doesn't affect me at all. Zabuza appeared right behind us, from the side of Kiyomi, and struck with his sword. I managed to react and, taking out my katana and running lightning through it, saturating my body with a large amount of chakra, blocked the blow. But my feet still pressed into the ground. I deflected Decapitator to the side and struck with my katana. Zabuza dodged and was about to strike again, but Kakashi had already caught up with him and a fight broke out between them. We really had nothing to do there. It was happening at speeds that were completely impossible for us. But everything happened like last time and Zabuza imprisoned Kakashi in a water prison, and put a water clone in front of us. "Take Tazuna away!" Sensei ordered. Of course, we did not listen to him, and tried to free him. Katon, Fire Dragon. Futon, Vacuum Bullets. Satsuki and I launched a technique at the original Zabuza, and he had to let go of Kakashi to avoid being fried. The ash-haired one himself was not affected by the technique. He got out of the trap and looked angrily at Zabuza. They began to compete in the strength of techniques, and Kakashi was able to defeat him. During the battle, the Mist Demon was carried closer to us, and while he was unable to respond, I rushed to finish him off. But then two Simban flew into his neck and Haku appeared next to him. "Thank you for wearing him out. I have been hunting him for a long time." He thanked me. I sat down next to Zabuza and checked his pulse. It was gone. "You are an Oinin, right?" I asked. "Right, now I will ask you to step back, I need to get the body." I stepped back a little and when he turned his back to me, I struck with a katana. Haku managed to dodge and jumped back. At that moment, Kakashi finally collapsed from exhaustion. "Naruto, what are you doing?" Kiyomi screamed. If he were a real Oinin, he would have destroyed the body on the spot, and not tried to take it. "So we have Zabuza's accomplice in front of us," I answered, glaring at Haku. "Congratulations, you've seen through me. Now you'll have to die. Kiyomi, protect Tazuna-san. Satsuki, take care of Sensei." I'll deal with him, I said to my teammates. They nodded. In vain, you could use some help from your friends, Haku said. Hayatan, 1,000 deadly ice needles. A stream of ice saban flew at me. Fwinpo, barrier, I said, folding the seals, and a wall of green energy appeared in front of me. As soon as the stream of needles ended, I removed the barrier and rushed towards Haku. We began a tie fight, in which I was superior to him. Realizing that he was losing, he jumped back. Hayatan, dome of demonic mirrors. A familiar dome appeared around me. He immediately entered one of the ice mirrors. He began to move between them at great speed, sending a rain of saban. However, I managed to block or dodge them. Finally, he stopped. You're not bad, since you managed to hold out for so long without getting injured yet. He decided to praise me. You shouldn't have stopped, I grinned. The time has come. A technique began to form in my hand, lightning crackled. Finally, I finished and I had a cloud of purple lightning in my hand. I struck the mirror with a scream. Sure den. The mirror shattered into pieces, and I came out of the dome. Haku came out of the mirror. Impressive technique. She was able to break the demonic mirror, which was something that few could do. I'm glad you liked it, I replied kindly. I raised my hand, in which lightning was still dancing, and said, Sure den. So. A beam of purple lightning flew out of my hand. Haku managed to dodge, but I began to wield the beam like a sword. He couldn't block the blow, so he had to dodge. After a minute of dancing, I managed to hit him. I passed the beam over his shoulder, but it was enough for him to lose his mobility and fall, shaking with convulsions. I dispelled the technique and crouched down next to him. I did not live up to Zabuza-san's expectations. Kill me, I turned out to be a low-quality weapon, Haku said heavily. I nodded and stuck a kunai into his heart. Rest in peace, Haku, I said quietly, getting up. Then I went to Zabuza and finished him off. Having created several clones that began digging graves, I went to the girls. Kiyomi looked at me in shock. Satsuki nodded understandingly. Tazuna-san, do you have a place where we can rest? Kakashi-sensei is suffering from chakra exhaustion, and to be honest, I am very tired. Of course, the old man spoke quickly. My house is a 10-minute walk from here. Let's go, I'll show you the way. Kiyomi created several clones that carried Kakashi. I nodded gratefully. I myself am not in a condition to carry him now. She came up and wanted to say something, but I beat her to it. Emuto, I understand that you want to talk, but let's talk when I rest and come to my senses, please? I asked. Okay. Just answer one question. Was it necessary to kill? She said quietly. Unfortunately, under the current circumstances, yes, it was necessary. If not now, then later they would have died anyway. Ask Satsuki why this is so, she knows. I said. Should I tell you everything? The Uchiha clarified. Yes, I think it's time. I hope to wake up just by the end of the story. I answered. Are you hiding something from me? Kiyomi was surprised. Tell me. Not here. In the house and under the barrier of silence, okay? I asked her. Okay, she resigned herself to the fact that she would not find out anything now. We walked the rest of the way in silence. Finally, we stood in front of the door of Tazuna's house. A beautiful woman with long dark hair opened the door for us. Father, you're back. Hello, Tsunami. You can put these young people to bed, they are very tired, but they saved my life. Oh, of course, come in. I will put you in my husband's room. She bustled about. We went upstairs, she showed me the room. Entering there, I fell on the bed and, without undressing, fell asleep right away. Chapter 12. I woke up suddenly, because someone fell on me. I opened my eyes and saw Kiyomi crying on my shoulder. I sighed and hugged her tightly. Satsuki was standing at the entrance to the room. She answered the question asked with a nod. I sighed again and began to calm my sister down. After about 10 minutes, she calmed down a little and broke away from me. How did you survive in such conditions? How did you not break down? The first thing she asked. I don't know myself, to be honest. Probably only thanks to stubbornness Uzumaki I was able not to break down, and because of the goal I set. I answered. Do you still want to become Hokage? No way. I don't want to become Hokage. I just want to live in peace, and with this position I definitely won't see peace. I chuckled. I began to admire you even more, she admitted. I honestly thought that you would be angry with me because I was not the brother you fell in love with. She hit me on the head with her fist. Don't talk nonsense. You are my brother and I am not going to accept objections. I can only thank you for saving the soul of this Naruto here, she said and pressed herself against me again. I sighed in relief. I was really worried about this. After a while, I was finally able to get out of bed. How is Kakashi-sensei? And how long did I sleep anyway? Sensei is still unconscious, but he is recovering. You slept for 9 hours. My sister answered me. Good. We won't have a second fight, so we will train ourselves until Kakashi recovers. We just need to decide something about Gato. I think he will come for us with a horde of bandits, like last time. Or we can visit them ourselves. Kurama grinned in his subconscious. You read my thoughts. I answered him mentally. Kiyomi and I went downstairs, where Satsuki and Tsunami were waiting for us. There was already food on the table. I thanked the woman and started eating. What are we going to do today? Uchiha asked. I will send clones to the bridge to protect Tazuna-san, and we will train ourselves. By the way, what kind of technique did you use yesterday? I have never seen one like that. This is my version of Chidori. I answered. The power of Chidori lies in the speed of the strike. Shurden is the same Chidori, but overfilled with chakra. Because of the amount of chakra, the lightning turns purple. And because of this, it does not need too much speed. Of course, the higher the speed, the better, but the main thing is the power of the strike. But few have a chance to master such a technique. I was able to because I am a Jinchuriki with a huge reserve of chakra. It is better for you, Satsuki, to learn Chidori. Kiyomi, you can potentially master Shurden, thanks to the Uzumaki genes, but you will be enough for 3 techniques at most, so I do not advise it either. I finished. Got it, and what are we going to train? I think it's time for Rasengan and Chidori. I grinned. Before that, I did not allow them to teach them, since they were not ready yet. Kiyomi, I will teach you the Rasengan, but you, Satsuki, will have to do something else until Kakashi-sensei wakes up. We finished eating and went to the backyard of the house. I took out the pre-prepared water balloons from the scroll. So, the first stage of mastering the Rasengan is rotation. You must make the water rotate so that the balloon bursts, I said, bursting the balloon with one hand. I was still able to master creating a Rasengan with one hand. Got it, said Kiyomi, and began training. I began meditating. A week passed like this. Kakashi came to his senses and began, at Satsuki's request, to teach her Chidori. Kiyomi was stuck at the second stage of the Rasengan. I mainly meditated, improving my control. One day I approached Kakashi. Kakashi-sensei, you understand that Gato will not leave all this so easily, right? I understand that, but what are you proposing? Sensei asked. I suggest we pay him a courtesy visit and explain why what he's doing is wrong. I suggest we don't take the girls, they're not ready to kill yet. Are you ready? The ash-haired man was surprised. We told you how the clash with Zabuza ended. Yes, indeed, I forgot. Overall, the idea is not bad, and I agree with it, but are you sure you can handle it? Yes, I'm sure. Okay, then we'll leave tonight. Kakashi concluded and went to his room. That night, we met near Tazuna's house and went to Gato. He lived in a large mansion not far from the village. Having quickly reached it, we quietly neutralized the guards and entered the house. We walked around the entire mansion, killing every bandit we came across. Finally, we reached Gato's chambers. Kakashi was the first to enter, not hiding at all. Who are you? How did the guards let you in? Your guards are no good. They can't do anything anymore. Kakashi smiled kindly with his eye. What? I don't believe it! The guards. The shorty immediately squealed. It's not worth it, they won't hear you anyway, I said, standing behind him. He immediately jumped back in surprise. What do you want? I'll give you whatever you want. He started wailing. I'm not interested, Kakashi said calmly and cut his throat. It's time to go back, I said, to which he nodded. The next morning was significant for every resident of this village. After all, it was on this day that they freed themselves from the oppression of Gato. Did you do this? Satsuki immediately asked when she heard the news. Yes, Kakashi-sensei and I didn't hide it. And why without us? Kiyomi was indignant. And could you kill without hesitation? I answered a question with a question. They just lowered their heads in response. That's what I was saying. Inari, Tazuna's grandson, overheard this conversation, and as a result, the entire village immediately found out who the heroes of the village were. As a result, when the bridge was finished, they wanted to call it the Hataki Uzumaki Bridge, which I opposed, saying that there were more than just the two of us participating in the mission. As a result, the bridge was named after Team 7, which we were all more than happy about. The way back to Konoha took much less time, because the old man was not with us, and we could safely go along the upper paths. Once in the village, we split up. Kakashi went to hand in his mission report, and we went home. The first thing I did was take a shower, while Kiyomi described the mission to her mother and Seiji. When I went down, Kushina immediately ran up and hugged me. Never take such a risk, she said. You could have died in the battle with that ice ninja. If I wasn't confident in my victory, I wouldn't have entered the battle. I answered calmly. I can't convince you, can I? Kushina sighed, moving away. Yes. Then just promise to be more careful, she asked. Okay, I'll be careful, I promised. Seiji came to replace Kushina. Listen, show me that purple lightning technique, my brother immediately asked. I sighed and held out my hand. Purple lightning began to dance on it. Seiji's eyes widened. Wow! And which is more powerful, Shurden or Rasengan? Interesting question, I haven't checked. I'll have to compare. Thanks for the idea. Asked me, he smiled and we all sat down to dinner. Minato, fortunately, was not there, so the atmosphere at the table was cheerful. I finished eating first and, saying goodbye to everyone, went to my room. I was tired after a long mission and wanted to sleep. So, having fallen onto the bed, I fell asleep almost immediately. Another month passed. We often went on D-rank missions, occasionally took C-rank. The lion's share of our time was spent training. I tried to create something like a Chidori Nagashi, but based on Shurden. It wasn't working out very well yet, but I didn't give up. Besides, Kurama had given me the good news that I could now use my 6 tails. Now we're standing on the bridge, waiting for Kakashi. To our surprise, he was almost on time. Hello everyone. So, let's get down to business. Our village will soon hold the Chunin exam, and I recommended you to take it. It's entirely voluntary, so if someone doesn't want to, they can refuse. If you want, I'll hand out registration forms to you. We'll participate, the 3 of us said in unison. I never doubted you, Kakashi smiled. Here you go, fill them out, and bring them to the academy by 9 a.m. tomorrow. The exam starts at 10. Good luck to everyone, he said, and disappeared. We exchanged glances. As I understand it, the question of whether we participate or not is not even considered, I said. You think it's right, Satsuki answered me. Send us to the training ground, I'll tell you in more detail what happened on my exam. I called them and ran towards our training ground. The girls followed me. Already at the training ground, I put up a silence barrier and began my story. So, there are 3 stages in the exam. The first is a written test of theoretical knowledge, as they tell us. In reality, they test your ability to obtain information and your determination. The most important thing is to agree to answer question 10 and not get caught cheating before the question is asked. In general, that's all. The first stage shouldn't cause any difficulties, which can't be said about the second. The second stage is a survival test in the forest of death. Each team will be given one of two scrolls, Earth or Sky. The goal is to collect both and get to the tower in the center of the training ground with them. This is where we met Orochimaru. Let's hope that we'll be lucky in this world and the snake won't be interested in us. If too many people pass the second stage, they'll announce an intermediate one. These are random one-on-one fights. The third stage will be in a month. There will be a tournament. That seems to be it. I finished my long speech. Everything seems to be bearable, as long as Orochimaru isn't there, Kiyomi said. Yeah. I suggest not training today, but just resting and gaining strength before the exam, I suggested. I'm not against it in general, Satsuki answered. What are we going to do? We can go to Ichiraka now, and then go for a walk, Kiyomi suggested. We agreed to the plan and went to a ramen shop. After eating there, we just started walking around the village. And we came across an interesting picture. Kankuro, grabbing some child by the scruff of the neck, was forcing him to apologize. We came closer, and I stood up for the boy. Let the boy go, I said calmly. I don't think you want to leave the exam just because you couldn't hold back your anger. Let him apologize first, and then I'll let him go, Kankuro continued. I don't understand, is he stupid or pretending? Kankuro, let the child go, a cold voice that I easily recognized sounded behind him. Gaara. I apologize for my dim-witted brother. You can be sure that he will be punished. It's nice to see a reasonable person. Your apology is accepted, I answered. Kurama chuckled in his subconscious, and I understand him well. At that age, Gaara could hardly be called reasonable. Okay, so I understand that you are also participating in the exam? Asked the red-haired one. Yes, Kiyomi answered shortly. Gaara turned his gaze to her and held it there for a while. Then see you there. I hope that you are worthy opponents. Gaara finished the conversation to Mari. Kankuro, let's go. Uncle Yashimaru is waiting for us. What? Yashimaru? Shouldn't he be dead? Apparently, in this world, the fourth Kazekage decided not to break his own son's psyche. And judging by the lack of circles under his eyes, either Shikaku doesn't bother him, or they put a better seal on him. Well, maybe then he won't have to be re-educated. The sand team said goodbye to us and went on, while we stood there and didn't understand anything. Finally, having come to our senses, we went on. After walking around the whole evening, we went home. The next day, at 9 a.m., we were already standing in the academy, ready for the exam. Having handed in the form, we headed to room 302. Noticing the crowd on the second floor, we just walked past. The fewer people there are in the right room, the better. Kakashi was standing in front of the entrance. It's good that the three of you came here. If someone had refused, the whole team wouldn't have been able to pass, but since you're here, I wish you good luck. I'm sure you can handle it. Kakashi gave his last parting words and disappeared. We exchanged glances and entered the classroom. There were many genin of all ages inside. Our classmates immediately approached us. Hello everyone, Kiyomi greeted. Are you all here too? Looks like our entire graduating class has gathered, Shikamura said. I'm glad to see you, Choji said. Our team mostly talked to each other, so we didn't have any friends among our classmates, at most acquaintances. We're glad to see you too, Kiyomi answered. At that moment, Kabuto approached us. It took me a lot of effort not to rush at him right then, because he could be Orochimaru's spy. Judging by the girls' faces, we were thinking the same thing. I wouldn't advise standing out like that. You are here for the first time, and you don't know the rules yet. If you want, I can share some information. I have special cards with information about the tournament participants. You can watch Uzumaki Naruto? Shikamura suddenly asked. I looked at him in surprise. Kabuto was already reaching for the deck when I interrupted him. No need, I said quietly. Kabuto looked at me. I don't want anyone to know about my abilities ahead of time, I explained. He nodded understandingly and put the deck away. At that moment, the examiners entered the room. Everyone, take your seats. Ibiki commanded. My name is Marino Ibiki, and I am the examiner of the first stage of the Chunin exam. Listen carefully, I will not repeat myself. You are now being given sheets with assignments. You are not allowed to turn the sheets over until I give the command. You have 10 points. If you do not answer or answer the question, then 0 is deducted from you. If you answered correctly, then it remains. For a detected attempt to cheat, 2 points are deducted from you. As soon as someone has 0 points left, he is disqualified along with the team. You have 1 hour to complete the tasks. 15 minutes before the end of the appointed time, I will announce the 10th question. That's all. Let's begin. I turned the sheet over and looked at the tasks. They were surprisingly simple. I quickly completed all the tasks, and began to simply draw on the back of the sheet. When Ibiki announced that there were 15 minutes left, I managed to draw Madara, Hashirama, Sasuke, and Obito. So, 15 minutes are left, and I am ready to announce the last question. However, special rules apply to this question. You can refuse to answer this question, in which case you and your team will be disqualified. But if you agree to answer and the answer is incorrect, you will never be allowed to take the Chunin exam again. You are given a minute to choose. Decide. I looked at Satsuki and Kiyomi and nodded to them. They nodded in response and continued to sit. People began to leave the audience. This time, I did not inspire anyone, so more people came out than in my world. When all doubters abandoned audience, Ibiki smiled. So, the rest are over. The questions and explanations began, which I missed. I came to when Anko flew in through the window and announced that the second stage would take place tomorrow in the Forest of Death. When all this was over, I left the academy with the team, and we went home, deciding to rest again today. Kiyomi and I were walking down the street when we were caught up by a man whom I definitely did not expect to see so soon. Hello, yesterday you seemed like nice people to me, and I decided why not get acquainted. My name is Sabaka no Gara, son of the 4th Kazekage. Yes, it was Gara. I was, to put it mildly, shocked by his behavior, but quickly came to my senses. Nice to meet you, I'm Uzumaki Naruto. This is Namikaze. Kiyomi is my sister. You are the Hokage's children? Unexpected. But why don't you bear your father's last name, Naruto? He was surprised. There are reasons for that I would prefer to keep to myself, I answered evasively. He nodded understandingly and changed the subject. If you are not busy, could you show me the village? We can get to know each other better at the same time, Gara suggested. Sure, why not? Kiyomi answered cheerfully. We gave him a tour of the village. He turned out to be a surprisingly pleasant conversationalist, with whom you can talk about a variety of topics. We exchanged several funny stories from missions and more. In general, we had a pleasant time. However, with the onset of darkness, we were forced to disperse. Thank you for this day, I had a very pleasant time, said Gara. Likewise, Kiyomi answered, I hope we can walk like this again. Yes, it would be nice, he admitted. I have to take my leave, see you at the exam. He said goodbye and walked towards the guest houses. What do you think of him? I asked my sister. A very nice person, I would like to talk to him more, said Kiyomi. Did you like him so much? I teased her. What do you mean? She snorted. Well, I believed you. I chuckled and ran ahead until she came to her senses and chased after me. A second later, angry screams were heard behind me, and I ran even faster. That's how we ran to the house. Luckily, Kiyomi had already calmed down, so she just poked me painfully in the side. When we went inside, we met Kushina. You took so long. How was the exam? She asked. We passed to the second stage, I answered. Congratulations. She was happy. Come on, go to the table, tell us everything. Having quickly sat down, we began to retell the events of the exam to Kushina and Seiji, who had come up. They listened to us with interest. It turned out that my brother's exam was a little different. They didn't have such a 10th question, and they only tested their ability to obtain information. After eating and talking, we went to our rooms. Lying in bed, I asked. Kurama, did you contact Shikaka? Yes, he answered monosyllabically. And how? I asked for details. Honestly, I'm in shock. He is adequate here. We were able to talk to him normally. This Gaara-S seal is terrible, but Shikaku contacted him a long time ago, and they have mutually beneficial cooperation. That's unexpected, I said mentally. So we can't expect a furious Jinchuriki in the middle of the village? If he doesn't want to destroy the village himself, then yes, we can't wait. The fox answered. Good news, I concluded. Okay, enough thinking. Tomorrow is going to be a tough day. With these thoughts I fell asleep.